Wait. Just wait. Okay.
This is lecture 66B in the series The ABCs of Communism. It corresponds to chapter 71 in volume 5. Dialectics of Human Migration in the South Asian Paleolithic is our topic this morning. Two questions to be answered dialectically arise concerning the South Asian Lower Paleolithic. The first is, what was driving the expansion of the human brain? And the second question is, what was driving Homo to move so fast out of Africa? Now, the answer to the first question is that nature was selecting for increased cranial capacity in the Homo australopithecus grade and the Homo erectus grade because of the positive survival factor in using culture. The answer to the second question is that the using of culture depends on not only on tool use, but also on collective tool use in securing a living and defending the band. This means eliminating the acquisition of different amounts of social product by different band members and/or families. Movement into new and challenging environments makes what might have been surplus social product into necessary social product. Surplus social product is the material foundation for envy, jealousy, and coveting, and necessary social product is not. Dissolution and disruption on the one hand, and united society on the other. That is centrifugal versus centripetal forces in the sociocultural evolution. Now, how early is the Lower Paleolithic? Some of the earliest hominid material outside of Africa, known before the South Asian discoveries, came from Dmanisi in Georgia at 1.7 million years ago. That skeletal material is of a primitive form of Homo erectus and is especially important because it is associated with early Oldowan stone tools. As you know from volume 1 in this textbook, the Oldowan is first recorded in Africa. Most recently at Gona in Ethiopia, Oldowan stone tools date to 2.6 million years ago. Now, Swisher et al., that is with associates in 1994, published a date of 1.8 million years for Homo erectus in Java, and Betis and his associates published a date of 1.6 million years for Java from the top of the Sangiran Formation. Homo erectus is dated at 1.7 million years ago in Yanmu in southern China, according to Professor Zhu and his associates in their 2008 article. And the next earliest Homo erectus fossils are of isolated teeth from Ubaidiya in Israel at 1.5 million years ago. And the report on that was done in 2002 by Professor Bellmaker and his associates. The early Pleistocene hominid record has recently been extended in Europe with the publication of a hominid mandible from the Spanish site of Cima del Elefante at Atapuerco, dating to between 1.2 million years ago and 1.3 million years ago. Now, there are early Pleistocene Oldowan sites outside of Africa. In Spain, there's the Bronco León 5 and Fuente Nuevo 3, and the lowest levels of Atapuerco. In Italy, at Piero Nord, we have a 1.6 to 1.3 million year date, and a similar date in Soprano, Italy. In Pakistan, as we have started to discuss, and we'll do more so now, the Pabai Hills in Pakistan are dated at 1.9 million years ago by Professor Denel in his 2004 paper. In China, Yanmu in southern China, and Manjungu in northeastern China are dated to 1.66 million years ago. And in Israel, as I say, the 1.5 million year old Oldowan technology at Ubaidiya is in association with Acheulean tools. In Ethiopia, at 1.7 million years ago, according to Professor Aswell in 92, we have a 1.7 million year date at Kanso Gardula, and in Indonesia, early Paleolithic archaeological evidence is reported from Flores Island at 800,000 years ago. Now, more on the motivation for the lower Paleolithic migrations of Homo. Bourgeois explanation for human migration out of Africa along the Mediterranean into and across Southwest Asia and then into South Asia had not gone beyond noting that Homo erectus was bipedal and endowed with, quote, a typically insatiable human wanderlust, unquote, as in this excellent example from Ian Tattersall in his 1997 Scientific American article entitled Out of Africa Again and Again. Excellent scientists like Robin Donnell simply breeze over the question of motivation as self-evident. Now, one cannot blame investigators for such blasé attitudes when we take into account that bourgeois explication in capitalist educational institution is absent Marxism and absent dialectics. We, on the other hand, know the real reason for human migration anywhere out of Africa in the lower Paleolithic, occurring when Homo was barely out of its first or Australopithecine grade, was because humans needed to apply their superior art of living via culture, that is technology, social organization, and ideology, to environments they encountered without creating surplus social product and the social dissolutional effects of envy, jealousy, and coveting. Migration made all social products created necessary when it would have been excess in tropical and subtropical Africa precisely because of these new, more challenging environments. That is, in other words, in Africa, an X amount of social product would have been excess if not evenly distributed constantly for our Y. Now, to do this, people had to move into challenging environments where daily social time had to be consumed in necessary, earning a living tasks. Such tasks included making clothing for hostile climates, making weapons for hunting, and making tools for and planning gathering, all in the midst of dangerous predators, just to protect the band and raise children. Robin Donnell discusses the challenges faced by migrating humans in the 2 million years preceding the agricultural revolution in his paper on hominid dispersals in Asian biogeography during the lower and early middle Pleistocene, 2 million to half a million years ago, in the journal Asian Perspectives, and then I give you the citation, but I won't repeat everything he has to say. Now let's move on to primitive communism of northern South Asia, by which we mean Bhutan, Nepal, Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan. Now at Rewat, Punjab, Pakistan, stone artifacts are nearly 2 million years old. The initial research was published as a monograph, Pleistocene and Paleolithic Investigations in the Soan Valley of northern Pakistan, and I give you the citations. Accordingly, Pakistan can trace its history all the way back to the Paleolithic or the Old Stone Age. The Rewat evidence is the earliest Homo migration and occupation outside of Africa. This means the Soan Valley has evidence for one of the major lower Paleolithic technological complexes from the Indian subcontinent. Now the second part of this research involved 6 seasons, from 1986 to 90 and 1999, a field survey and excavation in the Pabai Hills, which comprise a long sequence of river and floodplain deposits between 2.5 million and 500,000 years ago. The research resulted in the collection of over 40,000 fossil specimens from over 600 places, and these provide one of the best accounts of the fossil record of a riverine and floodplain landscape, although the basis for a detailed biostratigraphy of the early Pleistocene in South Asia is that although no hominid bones were found, there were over 350 stone artifacts recovered, many of which are believed to be derived from fossil-bearing deposits, and they date to 2 million years ago. Now at Rewat, we have dates running from 1.9 million to 45,000 BP, more or less continuously. Rewat, near the town of Murree, is the key lower Paleolithic site in Punjab, Pakistan. This site provides evidence of the earliest Homo occupation outside Africa and dates back to 1.9 million years ago. Now that site was initially discovered in 1983, and the artifacts found at the site consist of flakes and cores made on quartzite. Another site at Rewat shows a later occupation date back to around 45,000 years ago. Now, taking a closer look at the Soan Lower Paleolithic, named for the Soan Valley in Pakistan, where the Soan Lower Paleolithic culture is found, it spreads across sites that are found in the Siwalik Hills region of the present-day Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, and Nepal. The Siwalik Hills is a mountain range of the outer Himalayas. It's about 1,500 miles long, enclosing an area that starts from the Indus and ends at the Brahmaputra River, with a gap of 56 miles between the Teesta and Radak rivers in Assam, in the Indian state of Assam. The width of Siwalik Hills varies from 6 to 31 miles, and the average elevation is 4,900 to 6,600 feet. Now, the investigator Darashah Nasirwan Wadia, who lived from 1883 to 1969, was a pioneering geologist in India and among the first Indian scientists to work in the Geological Survey of India. He was the first investigator to work out the stratigraphy of the Himalayas. In 1976, the Institute of Himalayan Geology, which was renamed after him as the Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology, featured a republication of his textbook on the geology of India, first published in 1919, which continues as a foundational text. Wadia discovered the Soan archaeological stone tools in 1928. Helmut Detura first used the term Soan culture in 1936, and further archaeological research was conducted by Stephen Lysette, resulting in his conclusion that there is a Mode 3 Lavoisian technique being utilized. Specifically, the Siwalik region runs from Bhutan and Bangladesh in the east, through southern Nepal, northern India, and northern Pakistan at their western extremities, roughly parallel to the Himalayan range. The culture, as I say, was first identified and named by Dr. Helmut Detura in 1936. Then the British Archaeological Mission to Pakistan, under its field director, Professor Robin Dinnell, conducted research into the Paleolithic of Pakistan in the 1980s and 1990s. The first part of this work, done from 1981 to 1985, was based in the Soan Valley near Islamabad. It resulted in the revision, with his geological colleague, Professor Helen Rendell, of the Pleistocene and Paleolithic sequence established by Detura and Patterson in the 1930s, and their field work involved the excavation of an open-air settlement dating to 45,000 BP. Now, with regard to the material culture, many fossil-bearing rocks exposed at the surface in the Soan River gorges have fossils of gazelles, rhinoceroses, crocodiles, giraffes, and rodents dating as early as 14 million years ago. Some are displayed at the Pakistan Museum of Natural History in Islamabad, and terraces were formed on these deposits, and on these terraces the first South Asian immigrants left behind remnants of their material culture. The ancient Soanian culture of hundreds of stone tools is found on the Rawalpindi River Bend Terrace near Adiyala and Kasala. Various types of edged pebble tools characterize it. At Chantra in Himachal Pradesh, hand axes and cleavers of this time period were found, and the Soanian culture is a contemporary, therefore, of the African Acheulean Lower Paleolithic culture, where the tools date back 2 million years. The Soanian is the Pakistani manifestation of the South Asian Lower Paleolithic, known in India as the Madrasian culture. It is also a manifestation of the African Acheulean as a regional typological variety of that industry, and Soanian culture is characterized by quartzite bifacial hand axes and cleavers, chopping tools, flake tools, and microlithic tools. The Madrasian was named for its type site of Tirampakam near to the city of Madras, which is now known as Chennai, discovered by British archaeologist and geologist Robert Bruce Foote in 1863. The oldest tools at Tirampakam have been dated to 1.5 million years ago using cosmogenic dating. And the key article on that was published in Science magazine in 2011, called "The Early Pleistocene Presence of Acheulean Hominids in South India." Now, again, with regard to the Soan Upper Paleolithic, the British Archaeological Mission to Pakistan under its field director, Professor Robin Dinnell, conducted research into the Paleolithic of Pakistan in the 1980s and 1990s. The first part of this work was in the Soan Valley near Islamabad, and that was done in 1981 to 1985. And as I mentioned, it's resulted in the revision with Dinnell's geological colleague, Professor Helen Rendell, of the Pleistocene and Paleolithic sequence established by De Terra and Patterson in the 1930s, and that field work involved the excavation of an open-air settlement dated to 45,000 years ago. Now, in southern South Asia, Homo in India, it was announced in New Delhi on 24 March 2011 that archaeologists have discovered India's oldest Stone Age tools dated to 1.5 million years ago at a prehistoric site near Chennai. Chennai is the capital of the Indian state of Tamil Nadu, located on the Coromandel coast off the Bay of Bengal. We talked about that a little bit in the last lecture. The stone tool discovery is so far the earliest date on the arrival of human primitive communists from Africa into India. Therefore, we know humans reached South India more than 1 million years ago and were of the middle or Erectus grade of Homo. As we have seen, there is a lower Paleolithic horizon at Riwat in North Pakistan near Islamabad, and here there is an early Homo occupation dating to 1.9 million years ago. Thus, we see a route of eastward movement taking our Homo erectus ancestors across the base of the Himalayan uplift toward China. Therefore, it is not surprising that the entire South Asian continent of India was occupied by 1.5 million years ago. Researchers led by Shanti Papu of the Sharma Center for Heritage Education in Tamil Nadu discovered more than 3,500 quartzite tools of the distinct Acheulean type used by the earliest humans in Africa 2 million years ago. And these Indian tools are dated to at least 1.07 million years old, and some are possibly 1.51 million years old, the researchers reported in the journal Science. That is almost contemporary with similar tools found in Africa, the researchers noted in their paper. If the early age of 1.5 million years ago is to be believed, this has major implications, said archaeologist Michael Petraglia of the University of Oxford, England, who was not part of the research team, and he said the early date would be consistent with the age of early populations of Homo erectus. It means that a just forming hominid brain was able to cross formidable barriers and adapt to the ecological settings of India. Robin Dinnell of Sheffield University, England, said the new evidence suggests the spread of this type of tools from Africa occurred in 2 phases, first by Homo erectus into South Asia, and much later by Homo heidelbergensis northward and westward into Europe. Now, both of those are Homo erectus species. The discovery of the site Atirampakam in the Kartalia River Basin helps explicate the spread of ancient people from Africa into Asia. The find is unprecedented for archaeological studies in India, so now we have the 1.4 million year ago date on a site in the Levant, the 1.9 million years ago date in Riwat, Pakistan, and this 1.5 million year ago date from southern India. This means that soon after humans invented the Acheulean toolkit, groups migrated out of Africa at an early stage, crossing formidable geographical barriers to get to southern Asia, said Professor Petraglia. The suggestion that this occurred at around 1.5 million years ago is simply staggering. Petraglia said the main issue here is one of confidence in the dating methods, but as the researchers used 2 independent dating techniques, I am satisfied that the ages are accurate. The early date for the Indian find also helps explain similar tools found in the Bose Basin of South China and dated about 800,000 years ago, Donnell added. While the tools could have been developed independently in China, the finding of older artifacts in India now shows it was possible for the technology to have spread from India, and that's undoubtedly what happened. Acheulean tools originated in Africa by 2 million years ago and then spread throughout Eurasia. Knowing how old the oval and pear-shaped hand axes, cleavers, and other artifacts are will help archaeologists understand early human migration into South Asia and the Indonesian archipelago. Now, these artifacts were discovered in one of the richest Paleolithic sites in Tamil Nadu, India, called Antirampakam. Nestled in the Kartalia River basin, the site was discovered originally in 1863 by British geologist Robert Bruce Foote and has been excavated off and on ever since then. Shanti Papu and his colleagues determined the ages of these tools, which suggests that Acheulean tool-making humans were present in South Asia around 1 million years ago or earlier, existing at the same time as other populations in Southwest Asia and Africa. And this team discovered more than 3,500 quartzite stone artifacts, including more than 70 Acheulean hand axes, cleavers and flakes, small chipped stones, that is. By taking paleomagnetic measurements, the researchers were able to directly date the sediments that covered the Acheulean tools. All paleomagnetic measurements from around the site showed a reverse polarity, meaning that the sediment predates the period after the last reversal of the Earth's magnetic field. The discovery of reverse polarity establishes the fact that the sediments are more than 1 million years old. To obtain an even more precise age of the artifacts, the researchers applied a burial dating technique that measures isotopes of 2 earth metals, aluminum and beryllium. And these findings show us that early humans with distinctive tools migrated throughout Eurasia well over 1 million years ago. And the key reference on that is the 2011 article, Early Pleistocene Presence of Acheulean Hominids in South India, by Professor Papu and his associates in Science magazine. And that brings us to a conclusion of our discussion of dialectics in the lower Paleolithic of South Asia. In the next lecture, we're going to move on to the upper Paleolithic transition to the classical civilizations and early kingdoms of South Asia.